me. But my name's Jolene Hausman. I'm the Executive Director at Fountain Valley Senior Center. I've been there now for about a year and 9 months. It will be 2 years in September. And our mission is to provide services and activities to older adults, which enhance dignity, support independence, and encourage involvement in the community. Next slide, please. And so we do get funding through the Pikes Peak Area Agency on Aging. And what we're currently funded for is assisted transportation, regular transportation, home delivered meals, nutrition education, and calls of assurance. On average, we give over 16,000 rides a year through our transportation department, and approximately 10,000 of those are funded through the AAA. And roughly the split on that is about 6,000 is regular transportation and about 3,500 is assisted transportation. And so the difference between the two is whether the senior can get on the vehicle by themselves without mobility devices or assistance. And right now it's about a third that do need assistance while using our transportation services. Our home delivered meals program, which we call RAMP, because it's the Rural Area Meals Program, and we deliver in Fountain and unincorporated El Paso County. We do deliver 4,000 meals a year, and that number has significantly increased in the last 2 years. And with the home delivered meals, we also provide nutrition education to go with the RAMP program. And they get a monthly letter that is done by Silver Key's registered dietitian that we send to them. And due to COVID, we're currently getting funded for calls of reassurance. We have over 850 members at the Fountain Valley Senior Center, and every single one of those members was called when we shut down. And for those that wish to receive phone calls, they're receiving either weekly phone calls, and some seniors are even getting way more than weekly. One knows the person's phone number now and calls them every morning to say hello. So it's really increased. I think last month we did over 5,000 calls. And one of the most amazing things with the calls of reassurance is when the city of Fountain shut down to the public, some of the staff had extra time. And the city manager, Scott, called me and asked if there's anything that City of Fountain staff could do. So there's currently 20 volunteers from the City of Fountain volunteering 100 hours a week right now, making those calls of reassurance to our seniors. So it's really helping bridge that gap too between government and seniors and nonprofit. So we've just kind of combined everyone into making sure the seniors have what they need. And one of the best ones was somebody from the police department is making calls, and the person's voicemail was always full. And so we couldn't really know if they were okay or not. So they actually sent a police officer to the door to check on them just to make sure, because we hadn't been able to make contact. And the lady just thought it was a hoot that the police came to check on her, and they helped her learn how to clear her voicemail. She just didn't know how to clear it, and that's why it was always full. And I do want to read you a text message that I received from Scott Trainer. The very first day that the City of Fountain staff started doing these calls, Scott sent me a text that says, "Just one of several comments I received today from our folks making calls. Quote, I just got done making all my calls and I want to do this for the rest of my life." So he thinks the program's a success. So when I did submit my current grant funding, we hadn't done this in the past, and it's so amazing. The seniors love getting the phone calls. And so I did apply to continue that, because that way when people are sick or they can't come in the senior center, we can make sure that we maintain that contact. We've really learned how important it is to the seniors. Next slide, please. So additional services that we provide that aren't necessarily funded through the AAA is we are a congregate meal site. You guys do fund the meals. They're just funded through Silver Key, and then we host the meal site. We're kind of like a hidden gem down in Fountain. We are the second largest meal serving site in the AAA region. And so we serve approximately 75 meals a day, and that equates to over 20,000 meals a year that are served at the senior center. And even with COVID currently, we're still doing 75 meals. We have set up a grab and go, and I'll talk about that in a little bit further down. We do have additional activities. Just the fun activities are things such as bingo cards, wood carving, our porcelain class, we have a kiln, we have painting, and we bowling. We offer a lot of health and fitness classes. Thanks to your chair of the RAC committee, we have chair yoga. Dixie is the one that started it at the senior center, and it continues. We started offering Zumba this year, and Zumba was so well attended that we actually offer 2 different Zumba classes now. We have 2 chair yoga classes, Tai Chi, and line dancing. We do have a travel club that had pre-COVID had absolutely exploded this year. We do a lot of trips to concerts, museums, teas, nature trips, and this year we're starting overnight trips. We have a trip planned for Estes Park in the fall to look at leaf foliage as well as a musical dinner. However, that's kind of, wait and see right now to see if it is going to be allowed. We also host community resources. Any nonprofit or government entity that serves seniors in the region are allowed to come to the senior center free of charge and set up weekly or monthly visits. And so we have El Paso County Human Services, the Grandparents Program, Legal Aid, art. We offer anyone that wants to come. We also do additional transportation through the Colorado Springs Specialized Transit, and we do about 6,000 rides a year through them. And then also to note, anyone that that doesn't qualify for AAA rides or City of Colorado Springs rides, we do about 1,000 unfunded rides a year as well. So just because if someone's not a senior or doesn't qualify through their disability, we do still assist them. We don't normally turn people away. And one little unknown fact about our senior centers, we also provide dispatch for all of Fountain Municipal Transit as well. So we also run a fixed route and para-route transit system through our senior center. Next slide. So I just wanted to talk about some of the accomplishments in just the last year since I saw you guys last. Prior to my coming on board with the Senior Center, we were really under El Paso County's umbrella. The prior executive directors have all been county employees, and our drivers were county employees in the past. Right before I came on, the drivers transitioned to being our employees, and we no longer receive support from the county for technology, internet, phones, building maintenance, those types of things. We did receive a grant from them that is graduated down every year, but we are a fully sustainable, separate nonprofit now that can stand on our own 2 feet. We grew up into adults now, and just this year alone, starting January 1, we went off the county system. So we have all new technology platforms, including email, file storage, our website. We now use fleet gas purchases, vehicle maintenance, and do our own policy management. One of the things I'm most proud of my drivers for in the last year is they championed a systematic policy change at Memorial Hospital to ensure ADA compliance. Memorial Hospital was giving only one location that our buses were allowed to drop seniors off, no matter where their appointment was in the hospital. they have 4 ADA entrances. And in order to be ADA compliant, those seniors have the right to choose whichever door they want to be dropped off at. And so UC Health actually changed their policy, their written policy, due to the drivers coming to me and me reaching out to the hospital. And so now all specialized transit in the region can drop off at any door they want to drop, the client wants dropped off at. It's their choice. Another huge thing that's been 17 years in the making is we now have a consolidated route match database. Route match is the database that Silver Key and Vita and we use for specialized transit. Now, all of our databases are consolidated. And what this means, it actually worked last week. So we're so excited. Not only is it functional technology-wise, but we actually saw it in use last week. We had somebody call in Vita who is a dialysis patient but lives in Fountain. Instead of in Vita wasting community resources and deadhead miles, they can now look on our buses and see if we have capacity and book rides for us. So we're saving the community a lot of resources and time because we're making it much more efficient by seeing who is actually the best provider to serve that client versus who they call. And it's no extra phone calls to the senior. Like we currently have the one ride system, and I lovingly refer to it as like the 9-call system instead of the 1-call system. There's no back and forth negotiations on rides anymore with this system. The other great thing is, say we're closed for snow, and Vita can then go in and pull all our rides onto their buses for that day. So now we can back each other up for driver shortages, closures, vehicle breakdowns. And now that the 3 main partners are in this together, we're in talks with community intersections to come on board, and we'll be able to bring the smaller nonprofits on and be able to help them make their transportation systems more robust. Silver Key and Vita, as well as Fountain Valley Senior Center, have really increased their community partnerships over the last year. Prior to like our capital request or our carryover funding request from you guys this year, Gail, Jason, and I actually sat down and talked about what we were all going to request and kind of just balanced who had more important requests before they even come to you guys now. So we're even negotiating amongst ourselves, which then helps alleviate some of that burden that we don't come to you guys with our hands out for the whole world, and instead we're just asking for a little piece. We are looking at new programming when we reopen. We have a new program director. Mark Bowers was on my board, and I take it as a great compliment when a board member wants to quit being on the board and come work for me instead. And so he's doing the RAMP program now, as well as all new programming. And he is super excited, and he just loves working at the senior center. And so he's really increased the motivation for new programming. We do have increased membership, and thanks to you guys, we have a new vehicle. And last year we had a new vehicle that I gave you guys a tour of. And this new one is a minivan that a wheelchair can go into. We are reducing the number of really large vans to reduce our footprint and also to be much more cost-effective transportation providers. Because although we do have some buses that can seat 14 passengers, it's not cost-effective to drive one dialysis patient in one of those buses. So we are trying to be much more conservative with the funding that we receive. We've had some pretty major staffing adjustments over the last year that have really benefited the senior center. We did have Mark Bowers join the team, and we did reduce staff. We were a little bit overstaffed when I started, and now we have 2 seniors who are working in the front office. One is a retired financial government employee, and one is a retired teacher. So they just bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table that can only benefit the senior center. I also want to say I'm the opposite of age discrimination in hiring. Since I've come on board, I haven't hired anybody under the age of 55. Running a senior center, I think if there's any qualified person that is a senior themselves, they automatically get bonus points in my world because that's what we work to serve and live for. So I am the youngest by far, which they remind me of all the time with references that I have no idea what they're talking about, but it's been a great working relationship. Next slide. And so some of our, I'm going to talk about two challenges, and I decided to start with the COVID challenges since that's the current challenges. We have been closed since March 16th. Only the building has been closed. We haven't been closed to providing services. We have transitioned to meal pickup or delivery. If seniors are still driving and they feel safe leaving their homes, then they come pick up 5 frozen meals every week through our drive-through window. And one thing we've been doing is trying to take pictures at every pickup, and we put those on Facebook so they can still see each other. Dixie's highlighted on our Facebook page because Dixie's actually picking up meals for a neighbor that can't drive. So we've even seen seniors like peer-to-peer pickups and the senior population looking out for each other, which is amazing. And then anybody that doesn't drive, we're delivering those meals to them. And we have increased food security through additional funding through the AAA. So anyone currently receiving ramp food or that we're delivering food to due to lack of transportation, we're also giving them an additional box of shelf-stable meals, which is 5 meals. So they get a total of 10 meals per week instead of 5 to help alleviate any of that food insecurity while they're at home without access to the outside world. We have always continued to provide transportation through COVID. At the beginning of COVID, it was only for medical or food shopping. Now all transportation is open. So if somebody wants to get a haircut or go shopping or go wherever their heart desires, we'll take them. It is only 1 passenger per vehicle. And starting June 1, we finally got all our thermometers in. So there will be temperatures taken prior to loading the bus. Drivers and passengers have to wear a face covering. We will provide face coverings for anybody that does not have one. Drivers have to wear gloves. And then the passengers have to sit 6 feet from the driver on the vehicle. So we are following all CDC recommended guidelines. However, there is severe isolation right now, especially for those seniors that live alone and use our transportation services. So starting June 1, we're instituting friendship visits. And what that means is if you would like say little Miss Betty really misses her friend little Miss Elaine, they can call the senior center and we will pick them both up and take them to like a park or somewhere where they can visit outdoors. The requirement is they have to wear masks, they have to stay 6 feet apart from each other, including on the vehicle. But this way we can negotiate and stay within some of the guidelines and still allow some face-to-face visits. And one is really cute. So we actually have like this, these 3 people that are really good friends. And one is a boyfriend and girlfriend couple, and then one is their really good friend. And the one lady would really like to see her friend and her boyfriend. So we made arrangements in June where we pick up the lady and her friend, drop them off at the park. Then we'll go pick up the boyfriend, drop the boyfriend off with the girlfriend and take the friend home. So we can negotiate more than 2 people. It's just only 2 people will ever be together or on the vehicle. So we're really trying to find those ways of still getting the human connection while ensuring the safety of the seniors. And I will tell you, when the boyfriend and girlfriend see each other for the first time in 3 months, I'm so driving so I could take a video because it's just going to be the cutest darn thing ever because they miss each other so much. We also want to start more Zoom programming and doing where seniors that have access to webcams can at least see each other. So we'll start announcing more on Facebook some of our Zoom programming in June, and we will also be doing some presentations. During COVID, we have shockingly gotten a lot of additional funding, which has made all of this possible. So a great shout out to you guys for help. We also were able to obtain a payroll protection loan so that staffing levels could stay the same and we could ensure that everybody got what they needed without having reduced staff. Not only is the city of Fountain making calls of assurance, but one of the issues with COVID is all my drivers are over 60. I even have a driver that's 76 years old. So it's not only about protecting our members, but all my staff is the age group that I have to protect as well. So the driver that is 76 is also making calls of assurance right now in order to protect her health. And then she only drives if we have a driver that's unable to come in. I don't want to say there's like a silver lining to COVID, but in my world, there's definitely a silver lining to COVID. The last time you guys were at the senior center, it kind of looked like a 1980s nursing home lobby in certain aspects. We had a lot of hunter green and mauve and floral patterns that went out decades ago. So we have completely made over the building while we've been closed. Our thought is if seniors have to stay at home for months, then when we welcome them back, we're going to welcome them back to something better and beautiful and something they deserve. So we went from 80s to farmhouse chic, and we have windows on our stage that have been covered up for years. Like, we have natural light in the building. We have nice artwork now. We have an entire veterans wall now. So when we do reopen, I would really encourage you guys to come down because the building is awesome. And the best part of the building is not even that the 80s went away, but thanks to AAA funding part of it, we no longer have fabric chairs in the senior center. This has been my pet peeve since I started, and I see Dixie nodding her head. This is what me and her agree on the most in the entire world. No senior center should ever have fabric chairs. And so we have gorgeous, they're hard plastic, but they are comfortable, and they no longer have incontinence issues, these chairs. So I am so excited. There is not one scrap of fabric in that senior center. Everything can be sanitized, wiped down, clean and fresh, regardless of COVID or just normal cold and flu season. So I'm ecstatic. Next slide, please. So our non-COVID challenges are, of course, always space. We have outgrown our senior center years ago, and we're only going to continue to outgrow due to the boomer population. We have been working closely with the City of Fountain and Widefield Recreation Department on building a regional recreation facility where the senior center will be housed. Initially, this was thought to go to the ballot this year. However, as we all know, the economy is tanking and ballot initiatives for mill levies are not going to pass in the fall. And so this is going to be put off for a year or two just due to the economy. So staff and I are looking at things we can do to accommodate space. We're looking at extending our hours to have more turnover and more time in the building. Parking is always an issue at the senior center. However, that really ugly building across the street from the senior center, that shopping center that also should have been torn down in the 80s, like my old curtains, is now gone. And so they are building a new shopping center there, and part of that is a brand new parking lot. And I've already told the developer you know, all my seniors are going to park there whether you want them to or not. And he's like, well, I just said, well, they're going to park there. So let's work together on how this is going to work. So he's totally fine with it once those fences come down. Our biggest challenge is to outreach to boomers, because as more people reach retirement age, more people are working. So our current hours don't accommodate boomers. So that's why we will be looking at more evening and weekend activities to accommodate seniors that are still working. And then funding is always a challenge for every nonprofit. No nonprofit has ever said, man, I have so much money, I don't know what to do with it. So we're just looking at diversifying more funding options and for more funding sources. And through COVID, I've actually identified potential funding sources for just programs in the future. So there has been some wins out of this situation. Next slide, please. So one thing we are really proud of is we have never had a waiting list. And through our route match consolidation database as well, Silver Key's transportation waiting list is going to be going away, because now when people call them and they are at capacity, they can pass those rides off to Fountain Valley or Envita. So there's going to be less of a waiting list system-wide now too. So that's also really outstanding. Next slide, please. And I just want to thank you guys, first of all, so much for your time, because I talk a lot and I know I took a lot of your time, but I haven't seen this many people at one time in so long, and I miss having a microphone every day. And I also want to thank you guys so much for the funding that you have given the Fountain Valley Senior Center over the years. Jody and Lisa and all the staff at PPACG, I don't even think you guys understand how amazing they have been during COVID. I can call, text, or email, and I swear to you guys, within 5 minutes, I have a response. They have been absolutely amazing and supportive and ensuring that every senior in our region is having every need met, regardless of COVID. So just thank you so much to PPACG. Thank you guys to your time and dedication on the RAC committee. And thank you even more so to those that pick our funding. Any questions?
Hi, this is Bee Babbitt. I just want to compliment you on your many of your wonderful initiatives. I really was glad to hear about the ADA drop-off points. I spent a lot of my career time working on the ADA implementation, and so just to hear that you made that progress, that was very great. Plus the route matching. You know, I answered phones before COVID-19 at the area agency, and senior rides were always a big issue, and particularly when they were put on, you know, waiting lists and that type of thing. So I just want to compliment you on your programs, your initiative, and your enthusiasm.
Thank you. I love my job. I love the senior center. It's amazing.
Thank you so much, Jolene. I want to say, as somebody who's been involved with Fountain Valley Senior Center for several years up until recently, you're getting stuff done that we've been wanting to get done for years. So appreciate your efforts and your time and your direction for those things to come about. We really appreciate that.
Thank you, Dixie.
So we are, anybody else have any questions or any comments for Jolene? We've gotten some good comments, people posting things on the screen, so appreciate that. We will go on then, and thank you again, Jolene, for a great presentation. We'll go on. Membership does not have a report, so we'll go on to SRS. Jen, I know you're on here. Do we have a meeting scheduled anytime soon?
I have not had that time to get scheduled, so I will reach out to the group and see if we can get something scheduled for June. Our offices are finally letting us meet in person starting in June, so if we can do that at some point, I'd prefer to do that versus a Zoom meeting, but we'll take a vote of the consensus and get it done.
Yeah, that'd be great. Looking forward to that.
Thanks,
So
Dixie.
now yes, thank you, Jen. We will move on to Jody's report. Jody?
Good morning again, everyone. Before we get too far in, I just want to thank all of you who are non-board members, non-providers who have joined us today. I know we have Wendy to thank for putting that out to the SRC. So those of you that are our community partners through SRC, I really appreciate you joining us today. You know, it's hard to be asked to join yet one more meeting or one more Zoom, but in this odd time we find ourselves in, this is especially crucial because it's good for the public as yourselves to see what the AAA does, who we serve, how we serve, and I hope you will take some things that you hear today and share those with yet your further community partners. Because I've shared this with staff. We all feel this way. We're tired of being the best kept secret. So our hope is to, as we continue this work with our providers and our internal programs, to reduce that and completely get rid of that name. So, but again, thank you to board members today for joining us, as well as our guests. I'm going to start right in with the with funding scenario. That's not the most fun, but it is what we do. We do administer the Older Americans Act as well as the Older Coloradans Act, and we're approaching the end of the state fiscal year. And as you all know, we're in a situation right now where the state is facing really significant shortfalls, budget shortfalls, to the point of 3.3 billion with a B. That number has not changed. In our last meeting, I had reported a range that has now been narrowed down to the 3.3, and that's what the JBC and legislation are working through right now. So how does that affect us? As you know, nearly 50% of our overall funding does come from the state. And right now, because of the shortfalls, just as we have done with our providers and provided a 2-month contract extension, we approached that from the idea that we were about to begin the RFP process right at the time that the COVID changes were taking place, the precautionary measures with the stay-at-home orders from the governor's office. And so in order not to provide extra work or create extra work, extra stresses to our providers, we decided to take advantage of Rule 18 in our contracts, which allow us to extend those contracts to give our providers a little bit of breathing room as they refocus their efforts on direct service provision. Last Friday, this past Friday, was the deadline for RFPs, and so now staff are reviewing the funding requests for our next fiscal year 2021. So there's a lot more to come with that. The state has also decided to implement their option to extend the contracts. Theirs is more on the budget side because of the unknowns yet with the budget shortfall. I will let you know that we have had already 2 significant packages of funding withdrawn at the state level. The positive side to that, because most of you know I tend to try to look for the positive or what we can really glean and learn from these changes. But the positive, both of those packages were as of yet unallocated funding. One was a Medicaid package that would have helped in assisting people with signing up and directing and referral services and that kind of thing. That had some challenges through this last state fiscal year, just in procedural issues. It was never allocated to the area agencies on aging, and so that was a low-hanging fruit that was immediately frozen actually back in April by the governor's office, and so we will not see that funding. Again, it was never allocated to our budget, so we do not see an immediate change with that. The other is what we've been referring to as Homestead 2, the Homestead Act. As you know, we brought this up, touched on it lightly at the first of the year. It was a second round of Homestead Act funding. Those funds come from the tax, the older Coloradans tax benefits. That has been withdrawn entirely, and is being used as part of the shore up to the state deficit. Again, we were in conversation about what that might need to look like, we were making recommendations as AAAs around the state, along with the State Unit on Aging, making requests and recommendations how we would like to be able to use those funds. It has since been withdrawn completely, transferred out of the Colorado Seniors Cash Fund into the general fund, so those monies are gone as well. Again, silver lining to that, it was never allocated to our budget. It was never real money, as it were, and so it is gone. We will not see the Homestead 2 Act. Unfortunately, as part of that specific conversation around homestead funds, legislators are looking at a way to completely rewrite or withdraw the legislation that allows us the first package of Homestead Act funding. That was $15 million split up at $3 million across 5-year span. We're on the tail end of the first year with that legislation. That should have been 4 more years of $3 million funding statewide. That's not our portion. Our portion translates to about $350,000. Nothing to sneeze at for sure. But legislators are looking at a way to withdraw that legislation, that specific package of funding. There's conversations right now about whether to suspend that and put those monies toward the deficit, or withdraw it altogether and put the entire remaining balance towards the deficit, and AAAs would no longer have access to that money. So there's a lot going on. We are on calls, my staff and I, Melissa, Lisa, Casey, myself, we fill in for each other on the state calls, so that we're getting all the information. We're part of multiple calls every week, so that we're hearing this information as quickly as possible. And but right now, our state budget, because it's unknown, therefore the AAA portion of state funding is unknown as well. So here's what just a general overview of what it's going to look like as we move forward in our process. We're currently, like I said, reviewing the RFPs that were the proposals that were provided at the end of last week. Our staff will review those. We will, once we have all of that in order and have gotten things squared away, we will pull together the TRS, that's the Technical Review Subcommittee members, to begin reviewing the requests. The odd portion that we have to deal with this time is that we will see requests, but we won't know what our overall funding package will be. So we will have to look at priorities. We will have to look at priority areas of services, and that kind of thing. We'll still be able to have quite good discussions around what that funding package needs to look like out to our community. We just won't know what the overall funding will be from the state. With that 2-month extension that I mentioned, Our state funding will cease June 30th. We will have a break in July and August without Colorado state funding. So the way that we're going to be managing that in our AAA office is essentially think of all the funds that are not, have not been used through June 30th will be gathered up and reallocated to our current providers through that 2-month period. Our goal is that it will equate to 1/6 of their original allocation for 1920, so that they have the original funding that that they were allocated by TRS back at the beginning of the fiscal year 19, so last fall. That does preclude the emergency funding that they may have been allocated in this time. They will still have access to those. However, through a variety of conversations, meetings, Zoom meetings, phone calls, texts, like Jolene mentioned. We've also done a variety of needs assessments with all of our providers. Those funds are expected for sure through June 30th because that's what we had at the time. Late last week, we did receive our CARES Act funding, which we expect will end up shoring up part or all of our Colorado state funding. Some of you like to know really specific numbers, and so here's roughly what we are expecting. These are somewhat worst case scenarios. Nothing is definitive. And so what we can expect is a shortfall of nearly $1 million. Therefore, the CARES Act funding that we were hearing about back in March and April, when that was signed by the president, our portion is to be $1.36 million. Seemed like we'd hit the lottery at the time, right? Very exciting, and a lot of conversations statewide about starting up new programs and adding to what we've been doing. The reality that we face right now, unfortunately, is that that CARES Act funding, for all intents and purposes, may end up backfilling our state shortfall. That's a reality that we're planning on. We hope we're wrong. We hope that there will still be additional funding that we can add to programs like the YMCA and the Colorado Springs Senior Center, as well as Fountain Valley and Senior Silver Key, and just thinking of some of the providers that I see here that have joined us today. Hopefully there will be additional funds available after the makeup to the state shortfall, but we just don't know that yet. So as you might imagine, it's a little stressful some days, but we're going to figure all that out. We have a fantastic staff. I'm very proud to be in this position right now. I shared with someone not too long ago, February, I thought I was doing pretty well and figuring things out as a new AAA director. Bam, it's a new world. It's a new world. So we're figuring it out. And like I said, we have fantastic staff to work with, excellent providers. You also should be so proud of the providers that we are serving. I get calls from good examples, Jason and Jolene. I'll get a call from them and they'll say, hey, I want to run something by you. We need to make some changes so we're meeting the needs. What can we do? Under our emergency funding right now, we are still under the major disaster declaration. It does give us flexibility in using how we use not just the emergency funding, but also the allocated funding. So for example, I'm going to share both Silver Key and Fountain Valley Senior Center. As you know, they're both transportation providers. In the last month and a half to 2 months, they've realized very obviously, as it's been stated today, a decrease in their transportation needs. And they both came to me at different times and said, we have all of this money allocated to assisted transportation, but we're not allowed to drive right now. we can't take people to the grocery stores or, that kind of thing, and to the senior centers and events. Can we use some of this money to increase our food provision, our ramp programs, our emergency programs? And so because of the funding, they were able to show the need. We were able to transfer monies that were already allocated in one area that was unused into another. The programs that Gloria from the YMCA described today, their calls of reassurance, their deliveries of foods and material goods, same thing. As you noted, someone asked, are you still doing these programs? No, they were not able to, but we were able to pick up the funding that they were allocated originally that still remained unused and move those into a way using the information that we already have with other providers, and allow them a way to cover a portion or a whole cost of doing some of those deliveries, those services. They are able to bring on some more of their staff. I believe, Gloria, you were able to bring back around 16 to 18 members of your staff specifically to serve our seniors. Part of those are senior center staff. Others are staff members from around the YMCA system.
That's
and thank you. Therefore able to meet the needs of our seniors. And that is, I will share with you that that's what makes me excited about this job. Not just this job, but who we are as a service provider. The fantastic staff we have, but also seeing what providers are doing out in the community and how they're continuing to serve our seniors, because that's why we are all here and do what we do. So thank you again. That has been probably the most exciting thing, is to get that call from our providers to say, hey, I want to run something by you. This is what we're looking at needing to do. So thank you to all of you. Those emergency funds, we have a little bit left from the Family First Act. And as I mentioned, we'll be dipping into the CARES Act funding to backfill July and August while we wait to hear what's going on with the state. So we will we'll find out, and we'll keep plugging away. As of right now, switching gears a little bit, our building is still closed to the public. However, all my staff left on by noon on Tuesday, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, a day that will live in infamy for the Pikes Peak Area Agency on Aging, and immediately took a tech class around using a product called Google Voice on their cell phones, on their smartphones, so that they could continue working and meeting the needs of the community. They can take calls, they can make calls, and their personal number remains private. So if that's not something you've heard of before, it's easy peasy to set up, and it allows you to set up a new phone number for clients. But it has worked out quite well. Fast forward about a month ago, we were already in the process of having a new phone system installed at the office. And so it made it even easier without all of us there. And so you can call me on my direct extension and you will get me wherever I am, either at my computer or on my smartphone. So if you call the 471-7080 and plug in someone's extension, if they've set it up correctly, they'll get you. So that's a big part of how so many of our providers have been able to track me down. So it's working. It's been fantastic. So we do continue to work remotely. We are going to be moving to an appointments only scenario for the office. That's a variety of reasons. We have found that we can be far more efficient in our service delivery. And so as we begin working out protocols for re-entering the office a little more full-time. We're going to be moving to appointments only so that we can truly serve clients even better. Right now, that still holds true. If one of our staff members needs to have a face-to-face meeting, we do have protocols for how they arrange for office time. They will not meet in their physical office. They will meet in the small conference room or the large conference room, depending on space needed. We are asking a variety of things like wearing masks, making masks available to the public if they don't have one. We will also be doing thorough wipe downs after meetings and that kind of thing. Right now, just so you know, we have tentatively planned to continue working remotely and have meetings via Zoom through the month of June. But we are revisiting those return to work and access protocols. In fact, we're working on those this week. So as we make changes, we will alert you all as well. Now, despite being closed, we did print and receive the 2020 Yellow Book. The conference room is full of 5 pallets of these, plus our closet is cram-packed. So if you are a provider, if you are a community member, one of our community partners, and would like a delivery of Yellow Books, the easiest thing to do is to contact Melissa Martz, our special projects coordinator, and she will add you to her delivery list. There are a variety of places where these were delivered that we usually do, like the Colorado Springs Senior Center, Fountain Valley Senior Center, DHS offices over on Garden of the Gods. But many of our providers that did receive their main shipment remain closed to the public, and so it's a little more challenging. So if you would like several cases, there's 22 to a box. Just let Melissa know how many, and she can make arrangements to get these to you or meet up with you. Jess, if you've got that picture, we do also have newspaper boxes set down at our front doors on the parking lot. And you can see there, we've got 2 newspaper boxes right there, chained to the handrails. One holds our Yellow Books, and the other, thank you, Jess, the other holds our VA Medicaid guidebook. So if you would like either one of these, if you just need 1 or 2, or you want to direct someone to the building, they can access those 24/7. And if you need more than just a few for your clients' needs, then we are happy to make arrangements to get these to you. Thank you, Jess. You can take that picture off now. So a couple of the last things, I keep messing up my own. Here we go. That's the VA Medicaid guidebook there as well. So if you need some of those, just request. Melissa's happy to get those to you as well. So let's see here, just double checking my list. As you've heard today, providers, they changed very quickly. How they were delivering services, what those services truly look like, and we're really excited to hear how they continue to make those changes as there is now discussion and some recommendations, although not requirements. Every region will have to do what's best for their region, following their specific guidelines from their county offices and leadership. But there's already discussion about what congregate programs might need to look like, how those changes are made. We don't have specific time frames or timelines yet, so please be patient with us as we work between providers and state information and CDC and health department and that kind of thing as we try to figure out what that looks like. There is a general assumption, frankly, that how we were providing services in February and early March may not really come back and they will need to look different. And that's the million dollar question: is what does different mean? What does that truly look like to make sure that we're providing options, we're providing services, we're providing for the needs of our older adults in our community on all areas, not just meal provision, but the social isolation we've talked about. Because of course, ironically, the Older Americans Act was written to confront and face the issues of social isolation. And here we are smack in the face telling people to please stay home and stay socially isolated. So as you might imagine, the conversations get quite interesting at all levels as we try to figure out the right things to do, the new ways to provide those services and still meet the needs of our community. So like I mentioned, we're working on the RFP, the requests that have come in. Staff will put those together. We will provide those to the TRS and set that TRS meeting. I was asked a question not too long ago about attendance. We do want to remind the TRS specific meetings are closed to the public because we are reviewing private business proprietary information. However, once the recommendations are completed by the TRS board, those are made public. And so there are opportunities for the public to review those recommendations as we move closer to making those recommendations to the RAC board, and that's where the discussions will take place. So just want to remind folks there. We have a new position as it relates to transportation. Jolene touched on it briefly on the new programs with the route match and coordinating among the health service providers as it relates directly to that transportation. We have a new mobility coordinator who will join us July 1. She is coming out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, has an extensive background in human services, and we're excited for her to join us. As you have heard in the past, really briefly, we are, as PPACG and ultimately PPAAA, are in the process of receiving the designated recipient status from FTA and around the FTA 5310 funding. That is specifically around funding for seniors and disabled adults. And so by coordinating and receiving this funding under the PPACG, it will allow us to coordinate even more than we have in the past with our providers as it relates directly to the funding sources, but then also continuing to coordinate and create efficiencies around the service delivery. And so more to come on that. Like I said, she'll be joining us. Her first day is July 1. And so we're excited to see that coming in as well. We've already had staff doing some moving around in the office to prepare. I believe that's all I have for right now. I will open that to questions, and if no questions, then I will hand that back to our chair.
Jody, this is Dave Betzler from Northern El Paso County. Thanks for the great rundown on the activities for the AAA and what you're facing. I think you're doing a very good job on managing through this pandemic. Following up on, a little bit on the last meeting in person that we had a couple of us had a pretty extensive discussion with Park County Senior Coalition and about their about the straits that they were facing regarding funding and delivering services. Could you kind of update the group on what has transpired since that meeting, probably back in the January, February timeframe now?
Yeah, real briefly, because they did submit an RFP. Their chair, Joyce Whittle, she's the chair of the board of directors, has become involved in the process as well. And so with that RFP just being received on Friday, we'll be reviewing that, but I don't really have anything in depth to share as of right now.
Can I intercede? This is Chris Larson with
Sure.
from Park County. Just some information that I've received. Joyce has now been appointed as the interim executive director officially. This is from her mouth to my ears. I don't know I haven't received additional input from that. They have gotten some exterior funding, which has been helpful. They've utilized the CARE Act to process some of it, especially their meal plan, their ramp. So that's been a positive. They are in the process of their previous executive director. I think she is not officially gone, but she's in the process of training Joyce. I was approached about the position and I was asked some questions about it, but stepping forward, I may volunteer to do some training to pick up the process of understanding how they work. That hasn't been formatted yet. They're going to take that to the board, but they're hanging on. They're aware, and there is some direct counseling from myself and some others that they need to make a huge effort to reach for outside funding. I think they were our only provider that was exclusive to AAA, which we all know and I am the TRS chair, so understanding that is a big issue. So hopefully they'll step forward. We have some concerns obviously about that interim problem and not losing them, but they are, in some ways, the changes has been a positive because they are trying to make changes to create some more solid ground.
Thank you, Chris. And Dave, you may be referring to a meeting that we had with the board of directors along with the county commissioners, Park County county commissioners mid-March. And we were able to express concerns as they were raised in the TRS carryover process to the board of director members as well as the commissioners. And so thank you for this information, Chris. This is very helpful.
I'd just like to say again, Jody, thank you for following up on the discussion that we had at the last RAC meeting. I think it's really important to have the AAA director working with the executive director of PPACG and the county commissioners when these difficult situations arise. And I think it's a tribute to all of you that are engaged in that process that in fact positive steps have been taken and that the seniors are being served in Park County. And thanks to you, Chris, also for your participation and role in making that happen.
Thank you. Any other questions for me? All right, Madam Chair, I will pass this back to you, Dixie.
Okay, thank you, Jody. Great report. It's good to know even the cuts. It's just good to know what's going on and being part of the loop. Sometimes with this isolation, I don't know about the rest of you, but sometimes I feel like I'm out of the loop of things. And I don't know why, because I'm not doing things necessarily any differently. But when you have contact with people face to face, you pick up information that's just not there on Zoom or text or emails. You know, you can't pick up the vibes as well. So thank you so much for all of the information. Moving on to my report, basically I don't have a report other than I'm still out here and still doing my thing. There is a provider presentation schedule in the material that Melissa put together and Jess put on the materials for the meeting. So if you don't have that, and I think it was Chris said she couldn't print it out, talk with Melissa and see what you can do to get a copy of that. So next month, my understanding is we're still going to do a Zoom meeting. Is that right, Jody?
Yes, Dixie, at this point, we should plan to meet by Zoom for the month of June. If things change, we would certainly notify everyone. I will add, I can't remember if we announced this last meeting, but we now have changed bylaws across all of the committees to allow Zoom or phone access by members to meet to meet our voting requirements, as well as to increase participation. So if we do move to the in-office scenario, but someone is either not comfortable coming into the office in a public scenario yet, or is just not able to join us in person, but is able to join from home or their office, members will be allowed to Zoom into the meeting. So there's a couple of systems there in place as to what that might look like, and we will certainly let people know that sooner rather than later.
Great, thank you, Jody. Moving on now to action items. Our membership appointment has been postponed again. I don't know, is that something that we can work on as a Zoom thing, or do we have to wait till we meet in person to bring on a new member?
Well, Dixie, this is Wendy. I have still been reaching out to those who had verbalized an interest in being a part of the council, but at least 2 out of the 3 people are very deeply involved in the long-term care field, and I'm sure that with everything going on within their buildings and within the community as a whole, with everything with COVID, I honestly just don't think they've responded back. So I think they still have an interest. It's just the timing is just not good. So, but if, as always, if anyone has anyone who's interested or you think would be of a quality addition to the council, again, as a reminder, we do have to consider that at least 50% of the council has to be 60 and older, just to accommodate our bylaws, since that is the age group that we serve.
Good. Thank you, Wendy. Appreciate the update on that. Discussion items. I talked with Jody about this and gave this information to the board over the Zoom meeting earlier this month. And just to put out there, these are some comments I've gotten from seniors who are not involved in either senior center, may or may not be involved in any of the programs where they're getting phone calls. But these are people who are not living alone. They have either children or spouses living with them. But these are some of the comments that I have received over the last month or 2. I feel old, not motivated. I feel like I'm disappearing. I get discouraged and want to quit. I can't get into a rhythm, no sense of urgency, no desire to do much, no patience. Need something meaningful to do for others. Being taken care of feels like worthlessness. And these are very sad commentaries. And Jody and I were having a discussion about what is the purpose of the seniors during this time. We have activities, we have activity kits that have been given out, we have services that are available, but what is their purpose? What is the purpose of the seniors we serve? Throwing that out there for discussion. Anybody?
Well,
I'll add to that too. Part of our, oh, go ahead, Chris.
I think Jody hit on it very well. I mean, as the Older Americans Act, the intent was to avoid isolation, and we deal with it all the time. What's happened with us, one of our major concerns was our inability or the lack of sufficient internet here. We have found out that there's still been enough contact provided. We have stepped up really reaching out from the perspective of social media, what we have available here, and making phone calls. It's actually really, believe it or not, helped our transportation problem here, because people have stepped forward with essentially nothing to do that were willing with a mask to haul someone somewhere. So that was a big plus. I mean, I know that the statement was made that they're not to look at a silver lining to COVID, but that was one of them. But other than just the constant contact or reaching out, I don't really know any other solution to it. The isolation issue, I don't. And there's a lot of paranoia associated with this, you know, as a healthcare professional. You know, there's a lot of science related to it that has not been truly discerned. So there's ongoing concern. It's put a big dent in our fundraising, as it has with everyone. So that's an issue. But to a direct answer to your question, I do not know how to solve that social isolation, just encourage the minor ways that we can. We had a big bump happen with our census protocol programs. We put a lot of effort into it, and that's all literally the onset is in gratitude to the AAA. Because of my relationship with the AAA, we were informed a year before the census that there was going to be some direct funding issues, and it put a big dent in hours. We have been able to proceed with doing the media, putting up our signs. We've been able to do the social media end of it, but all of the direct public contact, having people come to fill it out, the dinners, the luncheons, all of that got shot down. But the social isolation component, I really don't know a direct answer, other than hopefully people just keep reaching out.
So if I may, I'd like to throw out two specific programs that are current, and they are going on in our area, and I think it may be an opportunity we can figure out, you know, amongst the RAC board, if someone would like to take on a program like this to help at least guide it. But as it's been mentioned, the activity bags that Dixie mentioned, Melissa Martz, our staff member, called all 26 apartment buildings that are not directly related or connected to senior service providers, and these are essentially just 55 and older buildings, typically very minimal staff, maybe a live-in manager. But she reached out to all of them, determined what those numbers need to look like, asked a lot of questions about how we could provide some services to them. Melissa then, along with volunteers and other staff, put together, packed these 1,300 activity bags. Some of those materials were donated. We funded a portion of that from AAA dollars, and they were able to get these out through those communities and out into the outer regions of where we serve. So it's that kind of thing. It doesn't have to be a long term, but I think if we can figure out a way to involve our seniors in this, instead of us doing 2 or 4, how can we engage the seniors in that process? So for example, one is actually, it looks like Gloria from the Y has had to leave the meeting. I'm going to share part of their outreach program. Part of their calls of reassurance involves asking people if they would like to be a phone buddy. And so you think of a pen pal scenario, but by phone. And so they get enough of those phone buddies who are interested. They have some qualifying questions. They ask about interests, that kind of thing. And then they pair those phone buddies so that those calls of reassurance don't have to come from these 15 staff members continually. They are now part of their outreach is to one another, and so it's that peer-to-peer scenario where the older adults are engaged with one another and aren't dependent entirely on someone else calling because it's part of their job or because they receive funding, or you know, you can go through that list. It looks much different when we're talking about a peer-to-peer service, and so that's one thing. If anyone with RAC would like to kind of take the lead on figuring that out, would certainly get you connected with Mary Swantecht, the program director at the WIA. She's heading that up. I think Jolene's example of the City of Fountain staff members getting involved in that, there's already discussion about having a big party when all of this is over so they can have a big cookout and come and meet the people that they've been talking to on the phone. And so that gives folks something to look forward to, right? And so not just this is, okay, I'm gonna get my call every Tuesday and Thursday and that's the end of that, but something really to look forward to down the road. And I know Mary has described something that they want to do similar so that their phone buddies can meet up and meet each other as well. So I think there's, you know, that silver lining, it is a catch-22, but there's some really neat things happening as people realize we've got to figure out some new ways of doing things. I just shared, and I'd be happy to forward this out to the entire committee, the National Association of Area Agencies on Aging, N4A for short, just sent an email this morning about some pen pal programs that are going on between seniors. And so again, coming back to the peer-to-peer scenario, I would, you know, at some point, love to hear, I know Dean is still, it looks like Dean is still on the phone from Laurel Manor, but when you think of a program like Laurel Manor and you have the challenges of keeping not just one or two people safe in their homes, but an entire living community and the challenges that represents. I know I've heard a couple different presentations from some of their staff with some of the Zoom meetings I'm in, and not just the challenges that they're facing, but what makes a difference to them. And that can be something as simple as letter writing to generally to not just members of the community, the seniors that they serve, but also to the staff. I think an opportunity that the RAC could really do is, you know, we create a list, we split that list, we do a letter writing campaign, a card shower, as it were, because there are communities that we don't hear from that that are not maybe prominently in the news per se, but that are dealing with COVID in a way that we can just not ever imagine. And what they're having to do as they serve their community, as they support their staff, the challenges that they're facing. I think it's a real opportunity that we might have to just show that, you know, hey, we're thinking about you and we appreciate what you do for our community. So I'm going to be quiet now and let you all take that call. We want you as RAC members to be involved with this. I know some of you may socially isolate because you are perhaps in the vulnerable population that we're trying so hard to protect, but the reality is there's so much that people could do even from home to be engaged with the community that we all live in.
Jody, this is Jolene. I just want to say in our last newsletter, Mark Bowers, my program director, his mom is in an assisted living facility now. So he had put in the newsletter because she used to come to the senior center. So a lot of seniors know her. And he encouraged anyone that wanted to drop off cards for her or other members living in that facility. And the turnout has been huge. on when people come pick up food, they're leaving cards. And so that's another way we have engaged with peer-to-peer on the social isolation.
Very nice. Thank you.
One thing I think I would like to add, that I think, because Dixie, your original question was, what can the seniors do? I mean, is there something that, what place do they have? And I think one of the things that I have thought of continually is that what they have to offer is the experience of many of them having gone through this type of an experience in their youth, whether it was rationing during World War II or other such situations, that they have the experience that, even though they may not have clear memories of it, there are situations that they have been through in their life experiences that they can share that, and hopefully with an opportunity to say, you know what, yeah, it kind of stinks right now. It's hard, but it's going to get better. And that they have that experience to share. I just wish there was a way that we could give them that opportunity to feel like you have this experience that you can share with others, so that we can maybe have a new generation be positive with the experience. Because, well, look, I guess our country, our world has gone through hard stuff before. We'll get through this as well. And I think that might give a sense of strength to our seniors, that hopefully they'll share not just with one another, but with their families and with the younger generation, hopefully.
Thank you, Wendy. I see Dean has unmuted. Dean, would you like to share anything?
Yeah, I can talk about our facility. It was the first to go COVID hot, and so we had to put restraints on just socialization between people and quarantine folks in their rooms well before that was a national trend. And we've been working with the county health directly. We're in communication daily. One of the things that, we're really concerned about is the psychosocial part of things with the seniors. They're used to talking to each other. We have a really large population of veterans, and they like to tell their story and regale each other, I guess you could say. They haven't really been able to do that. We've been toying around with the idea of leveraging some technology in order to get them to at least be able to see each other through Roku, but that's just a forethought at this point. I have been able to bring in therapy, which human touch can never be dismissed as part of our well-being. We do have telepsych going on, and with this quarantine in the room thing, they've just been getting debilitated pretty rapidly. We have one physical therapist that's coming in now. We had a request from VA on one person to have that was not something we could provide, because we just have one therapist and they're only allowed to work on one hall. So you can see how that is an impediment to successful therapy, but yet that is the world we have. And so the card shower thing doesn't sound like a bad idea. We've had gift cards sent to us from all over the United States from people in our organization, which you may not know is actually a very large organization. It's a $2.5 billion organization, and they actually have two headquarters, but we're also a church, and so we like to think that we're providing as much spiritual support as we can. And so we do have available to us chaplains to do chats, if you will. We've been doing Zooms with family members. Of course, we have family members come to the window like other facilities do. And so we're trying to get to the point where we understand technology better than we thought we would ever need to understand technology in order to connect people. and it's difficult because there's a learning curve. But so right now we have a device that's dedicated to do telepsych visits, and we have a psychiatrist that was doing some visits just yesterday via telepsych. All the providers cannot come in the building. We're really stringently on lockdown. So all the care being designed and delivered is really delivered through phones or tablets. And so that's new to us too, and not quite usual. I like that someone said that this generation has needed to adapt to change, like in the Depression and the 1918 Spanish flu, of course, was converted back to normal through herd immunity. And there's so many people now, I don't know how long it would take to get to herd immunity, but it sounds like a vaccine is going to be a faster route. Doesn't sound like the vaccine's coming anytime soon, but hopefully that'll put things back to normal for our seniors when it does come. The fact is that I think it's kind of like the common flu and the common cold. Everyone's going to have it. It's whether you survive it or not. And we're seeing that in our population. We went from 74 to 50 in 3 months' time.
Wow.
Not all of it was COVID deaths, but I think the state rightly is saying that a person is dying from something with exacerbation from COVID. And so like when we're screening our employees when they come to work and screening them in the middle of their shift and so on, we have such a sensitive testing tool. It's just unbelievable. I myself am at home because I had a 99.2 temperature after being outside looking at the good gardening work that our maintenance director and our activities director did. And so the residents can go outside, but not with family members. And that's how we're trying to do socialization. We can't have more than 4 people out of the building at one time. They have to be social distancing and of course wearing masks. And some of them are getting what I call COVID madness, because it is tough to be quarantined like that when all you really have to look forward to is socialization and the meals. What are we eating today? So it's been pretty tough. So I certainly do welcome the card shower.
Thank you very much, Dean. I really appreciate that. Madam Chair, we are getting close to the end of our allotted time. How would you like to move forward with these ideas?
Well, I think at this time we should kind of take into account all of the ideas, and everybody that is able to start a card campaign within their organization, maybe, and to identify places that they can send card showers to, because there are a lot of facilities out there, and they're all pretty much in the same situation as that Dean was talking about. Nursing facilities by nature are kind of isolating anyway. Excuse me. And yeah, I think that any group or organization that we can reach out to and motivate to do cards and get the seniors involved in doing something for somebody else, because we all know when you do something for somebody else, it gets your mind off yourself. And you know, the two populations that really need the outreach are the seniors in facilities and small children, the kids that are not able to go to school, the daycare places. If we could get seniors sending notes to daycare facilities, might be beneficial too. I don't know if we can initiate anything right now other than just to make the suggestion and think about it and work on it over the next couple of weeks. How does that sound?
It sounds great, Dixie. I'm actually going to take the phone buddy program that you guys mentioned to our board. That's a wonderful idea. We'll start doing membership calls and see if we can get people signed up. I don't know about the card thing in our area, but the phone buddy thing, I think we'll jump on that ASAP.
Great. Well, it sounds good. Our next event is our next meeting on the 25th of June, either by Zoom or in person, whichever works out. So I'm just going to wish everybody good health and good food and try to have some fun with this. And unless anybody else has any more comments, I'll call this adjourned. Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Goodbye,
everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Hey, Lisa.